when I first announced the book, there was a lot of backlash. And then a lot of multi-level marketing companies put out the feelers like, hey, don't comment about this, don't post about it. Kind of like, we don't want to give more attention to it. I think because so many women are touched by it in some way, whether they've like lost a friend to it or they've been involved or they've just thought it was shady. Most people can find something they really resonate with.
I dreamt that you were twisted through seven.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Soberful podcast. And I am joined today by Emily Paulson. Hi, Emily.
Hi, Veronica. Good to be here.
About time. Can't believe it's taken this long to get you on the show.
I know.
Yeah, I followed you for ages, and we've met a couple of times in person, and but I'm glad that I waited because I read your book, Hey Hun, and I just loved it. I want to tell you what was interesting is I read it fairly close to. I also read Christy Coulter's book, Exit Interview, and I found it interesting. There were two interesting books to read about women in business and the relationship of women in business with alcohol, but could tell people what Hey Hun is about.
Yeah. So Hey Hun is about my entrance, indoctrination, and exit from a multi-level marketing company, which if people don't know what they are, they probably do know what they are. It's those, people reach out to you on social media. Hey Hun, my business opportunity, join my team, these lavish income claims. They're basically pyramid schemes with product. So it's all about that. And also about, my substance use during that time.
Okay. So we do kind of have them in England. I know. So it's basically you sell products to your friends and you want to grow that kind of base, right? Everyone's a potential sale, right? Everyone's like, oh, I have that. That's how it works. Like there's no storefront or anything like that. It's you and mostly women, right? Selling to their friends and their friends of friends and their friends of friends' friends. That's how it works.
And there's nothing wrong with sales. Like, if I make a product at home and sell it to my friends, like that's sales, one-to-one sales, right? And what makes multi-level marketing so shady is the multi-level part of it, is that the majority of money is made from collecting other people. It's very little to do with the products. The products are just neither here nor there, really. So the people who make the most money are the people who get in early, like at the top of the pyramid, and the corporations. These are huge corporations, and they're sold as like these little mom and pop, stay-at-home mom, side hustle, when in reality they're huge corporations and most people don't make money. And they're really not a lot in the UK because they have stricter standards about them. So they really are a very American thing.
Wow. So the book was fantastic. It's a real page turner. I mean, I really was invested in the story. The story question was like, how does she survive this? Because you start like, your kids are still little, you're a bit lost, purpose and all that kind of stuff. And it really provides a lot of things. And it's exciting and it's something for yourself. And then also the drinking is wrapped up very much in it. Can I ask, what's been the reaction to the book?
It's been overwhelmingly positive, surprisingly so. I mean, of course, when I first announced the book, there was a lot of backlash. And then a lot of multi-level marketing companies kind of put out the feelers like, hey, don't comment about this, don't post about it. Kind of like, we don't want to give more attention to it. And so by the time the book came out, there was very little pushback, which has been great. And really the pushback or, the negative reviews, the 1-star reviews are really from people who haven't really even read it or, they're just offended that someone is talking about the industry as a whole. So it's been overwhelmingly positive. And I think because so many women are touched by it in some way, whether they've like lost a friend to it or they've been involved or they've just thought it was shady, most people can find something they really resonate with.
What about people that you used to work with? Have they given you any reactions?
It's interesting because multi-level marketing, again, it's like your friends and family who are mostly targeted, and it's your friends and family who get you into it. And so if people were friends prior to me being involved in this, they're still friends. Like that didn't change. The people by and large who I met in the company, who I really thought were friends, but it was really just proximity. They really couldn't talk to me anymore after I left because, it challenges what they need to believe to stay in. Right. And I would say after I left, the people who I inevitably kind of pushed away because of my involvement, then, I've been able to rekindle those relationships. So, in a similar way, it's like alcohol when, you find out the people who are there just for the party and the people who are there for real friendship. So I would say, the people who were friends before are still friends now.
So there's quite a few scenes in the book, and I wrote notes in my phone because I was like, I knew I was going to interview you and I wanted to remember things. There's quite a few situations in the book where you are all brought together for development and, all of that kind of stuff and camaraderie with other women, but really, really alcohol fueled. And there was one that really kind of chilled me, and it was the first retreat that you went to. Can you tell that story? Do you know which one I'm talking about?
Is this like the Colorado retreat?
Yeah, where the woman goes.
Yes.
Yeah, that one. Yes. I mean, it just chilled me.
Yeah. Alcohol is really part of a lot of, and it's not singular to MLM. I mean, we see this in lots of different industries too. The happy hour from corporate, you know what I mean? Like alcohol, we know, but we both know this. Alcohol fuels a lot of things.
Yeah.
But with an MLM, you've already got this group of women who are like looking for this escape. And like the MLM filled the same thing that wine did for me, right? Like it was an escape from myself. It was so I didn't have to deal with things. It was, and so you have a group of women together who are maybe away from their kids for the first time since having kids and drinking a lot. And it ends up being like, college spring break in a way. And, there was a woman who like went home with a guy and, it's just, and people kind of look the other way. It just is, it's not a healthy environment. And it's sold as, personal development.
Yeah.
So it really normalizes a lot of very abnormal behavior.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, alcohol is in all sales. I have so many clients working in corporate who are going on company retreats, and it's all alcohol fueled. So I guess it's not really unique there. But there's also like can you say a little bit more about the kind of women who are attracted to this?
Yeah.
It's kind of a lot of stay-at-home mothers, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah. And when people are like, oh, I don't know how women get sucked into these things. And it's not really a specific kind of person. It's a person in a specific like place in their life. So in transition, like for me, it was, I'd been stay-at-home mom for years and wanted to somehow contribute and didn't have any other avenues. So it's really, it's these bad things fester where we have no other options. We have our childcare is too expensive and we don't have paid parental leave and all that, systemic stuff. And so it's people who maybe they just lost their job. Maybe they're so out of other options. And then you have this thing over here. It's like, oh, it looks fun. And these products look okay. And they go on trips and wow, this looks really enticing. It's like it preys on the hope that you could be like the 1% who makes it. Right. So it's just, it's really, when I say like vulnerable people, there's pushback to that. Like, oh, are you saying women are vulnerable? Moms are vulnerable. And it doesn't mean you're a sucker. It means you don't have options that are available to, men in the workforce, right? Because they don't, have the majority of childcare. And so that's why a lot of people who are targeted for these are moms, because we are so out of options.
So when I read the book, when you go into it at the beginning, you're drinking. I mean, you like your drinking, but do you think if you hadn't have gone to it, your drinking would have escalated the way it did? I saw there was a real relationship with you being in the MLM and your drinking escalating. What do you think?
Oh, for sure. It definitely escalated a problem that was already there. And who knows, maybe I would have found another way to drink all the time. But the more I drank, the more, air quotes, successful I was, because I had no inhibitions. I was like cold messaging tons of people. I was saying things I wouldn't normally say. And that led to my network increasing. And then I was going out more to like make sales. And so then I was drinking more. It's like the drinking led to more drinking, led to more drinking, and led to more celebrations, which again, more drinking, more parties, more drinking, more traveling, more drinking. So it definitely escalated something that was already there. And, I often get the question like, do you think you would have joined had you not had a drinking problem? Or do you think your drinking problem would have got as bad? And I think both. And like, again, I think I was looking for the same escape that I was looking for in wine and an excuse to escape. Right. And it gave me both those things.
I remember back in the day when I did some sales stuff or whatever, and I was able to drink, it always gave me more balls. Like there was just things like, I mean, I've never like just reaching out to people cold is just terrifying. It like, it almost feels like you need it really.
Yeah. Well, and I look back at like my Facebook message history. It's like, I don't even recognize that person. I was giving these canned responses to things and just, cut, paste, send. It's just, I had absolutely no filter. And, the filter's there for a reason, right? We have, again, it's like, it drowns that intuition that I wouldn't have said these things. I wouldn't have done these things had I not been drinking.
Yeah. What was your husband worried about you? Like, did he notice?
It's interesting. Of course, hindsight, you see so much enabling and we both see things that were like, how did we not know this was a problem? But, at the time, he also knew I was seeking something. He knew I was having a hard time. And so all of a sudden I was out, I was having fun and I was having some success. And so he really championed the fact that like, wow, look, you're doing something good. You're making a little bit of money. And so, enabled in that way. And of course, he didn't know how much I was drinking. I mean, he knew I was drinking a lot, but like everybody else, like I seemed to have a handle on it. Like I was successful. I had all these kids. Like at that point, again, I hadn't had the DUI and medical stuff and all these other things that ended up happening. And so it looked like I had it all together. So he really, didn't see the correlation until, much later.
So you cleared up I mean, I didn't know too much about MLMs. I remember I guess it was in the 90s, I was in Key West. And I remember meeting these couple of girls at a bar and we kind of got on. And then one of them said like, oh, like I have this evening where I give free facials. And I was like, oh, that's great. Yeah. Like, do you want to come? And I was like, yeah, I was, it was, and she was a consultant for Mary Kay. And that was my first introduction into that. And then it was like, oh, you're expecting me to buy things.
Yeah.
I didn't. And then it all felt really uncomfortable because I mean, and I guess it was naive. Like nobody just gives free facials. Like, what are you thinking? And then she did try and recruit me. And then over the years, other people have, and I've never done anything like that. Just because I'm not good at selling and I don't care. Yeah. And it's like, buy it or don't buy it, But I remember seeing, like, you cleared up the whole story about the white, is it a BMW or a Mercedes? What is the car?
Well, it was a Lexus. I think in the book I said it was a Mercedes, but yeah, it was a Lexus in our company at the time.
Okay, so can you tell that story? Because that's one of the things, like, you see, like, they give you, like, a $50,000 car, like,
right. The
oh
pink
my God.
Cadillac, everyone knows about the car program or whatever. So the story that's told is, oh, I got to the point in the company where I got a free car. I earned a free car, earned a car. It's a car program. So the company gives you a stipend when you get to a certain level. And to get to that level, it's not easy, but you have to collect a lot of people. It requires a lot of recruiting. And so, okay, you get to this level, yay, you have to hold it for a certain number of months. Good for you. And then the company gives you a stipend. And at the time, I think it was $1,000, when I earned it, and they put it on your paycheck, but you have to actually go buy the car. So you don't get the money unless you go buy the car. And, it sounds great. It's like, cool, you get $1,000 towards your car. You have to pay the down payment. You have to, have the credit to get a car, right? Whether you lease it or buy it, title, registration, taxes, fees, everything, insurance. And then the cars are luxury cars. Again, it was a Lexus. I had 5 kids, so we needed a big one. And so the car was over $100,000 at the end of the day. The payment was well over $1,000. And so I ended up walking away, with the free car that actually cost me, $1,000 more a month. So even though the company gives you a stipend for it, it still never covers the actual car payment. And $1,000 was a lot. I think now the company only gives $500. But the real rub is that it's all in your name. Everything's in your name. So if you don't hold that title, the title that you needed to achieve that car, to get the free car, they don't give you the money. And most people do not keep that title because there's so much churn, there's so much turnover in MLM. And so then you're stuck with this car that you never needed, never wanted. It's completely on you. So a lot of these leases get turned back in. And people have asked, like, well, why do you get the car then if it's such a shitty deal? Like, why would you get the car in the first place? And it's because you're shamed if you don't. Like, if you get to car volume, if you're a car earner and you don't drive the car, how do you explain that? How do you explain that to your team, to the people around you, that you don't have the car? And so it's really nefarious.
All about image.
Yes, it's all about image. And so when people say, like, is that the car? Like, I still drive this car. Is that the car you earned? It's like, no, that's the car I bought. That for a while, they gave me a little bit of money towards. But no, like, it was just a car I bought. And any of these women who have the free car, it's a car they purchased or leased. That's, at the end of the day, that's all it is.
And then isn't there a story about when there was a drink driving incident with the car?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the day that I, earned that title that earned me the car, the free car, I got arrested driving home and got a DUI. And saw it towed away, my bright, shiny new car. And then, 6 months later, that car had a breathalyzer in it. And so it was constantly just this, what you saw on the outside was not what was going on the inside, like this outward success. And it was just inside, my life was like crumbling.
Yeah. Can you tell us about, like, how did the disillusionment start? Because there was almost a parallel with your drinking as well. I think you got sober before you quit the MLM, didn't you? And it definitely seemed like in the book that once you were sober, it was completely unsustainable to stay in the MLM.
Yeah.
When did you first get disillusioned with the MLM and the system? Like, how did that creep up on you?
Yeah. So I got sober and it was a very sudden, like, had to do thing, right? Like,
was it because of the DUI?
Well, so it was the DUI. I actually didn't get sober for 6 months, but it was the DUI that set it in motion because I did get the breathalyzer in the car and it confirmed how much I was drinking and confirmed how often I was drinking. And, it slowed me down enough. And, I got some health results. My liver was not good. Like, it was enough things that finally, like, I could not drink anymore. Like, it was like a life or death. Right. So got sober, worked the steps, was doing all these things. And all of a sudden I realized, like, oh gosh, I can't do the things I've been doing. I can't send all the weird text messages. I can't go to these parties. I can't have people over and, like, drink all this wine anymore. But I was already at this place where I was high enough in the pyramid that I didn't have to do those things anymore. There were enough people, downline from me doing those things. And then the other thing that happened is I was celebrated. And MLMs, there's a lot of toxic positivity and love bombing. And no matter what you do, you'll be celebrated because, people are making money off of you. So it was all of a sudden from corporate, it was like, wow, we want you to share your story, like, about getting sober. And of course, like, that's very, like, predatory and icky. But, as like, when you are getting sober and you're working the steps and you're told, like, whenever someone asks you to speak about your sobriety, speak about your sobriety. Whenever someone's asked you to share. And so to me, I was like, okay, this is good for me, which it was. Sharing about my sobriety was good for me, but it was done in a way to, like, boost up this MLM. You know what I mean? And so it was done in a very icky way that looking back, I did not feel good about, but that kept me going a little longer because I did feel, I'm like, am personally developing. Like, this is good for me. And that's when I started saying, okay, what do I want to do? Like, what I could see the writing on the wall that this wasn't going to be something I could continue. And so I started, taking coursework for recovery coaching and learning more about that and addiction awareness. And I started writing, and I kind of decided to go in that direction. And just the farther away I got from it, I just wasn't in integrity with me anymore. And it was really the pandemic that like was the nail in the coffin. It was so much predatory behavior. I saw it really finally for what it was. And that's, when I had to fully walk away.
And how long have you been sober now?
7.5 years.
Wow. And what's that been like?
Amazing. I mean, like you can't ever go back. And if I could have told myself how great life is without it, I don't think I would have believed it. Yeah.
And you're also recovering from breast cancer, right?
Was that cervical cancer?
Cervical cancer. I'm sorry. Yeah. Oh my goodness. And there was just so much in that book. Yeah. I remember that when you talked about that, where that's what you portrayed, is that like, you want to do this. It's presented like you could go, there could be a woman in the audience who, is going through cancer or is thinking about her drinking. You could help, but somehow it sucks all of the integrity out of it. Right. I know exactly what you're talking about. Are there any, like, I mean, because you're right, some of the products are good, right? They're not like there was one, my husband, he used to buy me gifts from this woman who used to sell stuff, Stella and Dot.
Oh yeah, jewelry, yeah.
And I really, like, their bags were awesome. I loved their stuff. So some of the products are good, but it's just the system of it. I watched after reading your book, I had to watch the show. What was the one about the leggings?
LuLaRich.
It's insane.
It is. And that's what they are all, that really is what they're all like. At the heart of it, they are all the same. And yeah, there's nothing inherently necessarily wrong with the products. There's just actually nothing special about them either. Like, you can find dupes for everything. There's only so many things that are commercially available, like to be sold in the United States anyway. So there's always another product you could find that's not MLM. And they're so marked up. They're so expensive for what they are because, again, it's paying so many people in the pyramid. So that, when people say like, gosh, I read your book and I don't want to be involved in MLM anymore, but I really love this hand cream, just search like, whatever the product is, dupe or replacement. And like, you can find stuff. There are replacements for everything.
Wow. Do you think the whole thing, because there's tons of them. I mean, you make up, you don't say who the thing is, you make up a brand, but there's so many of them. Do you think they'd all collapse if it wasn't for alcohol? Because that's just what seemed really clear to me, is that, the alcohol is required to do this. You can't do it without alcohol.
It helps. I think the biggest thing is there's so much political backing for MLMs. Like, there's a lot involved. There are, a lot of lobbyists for MLMs because like the Direct Sellers Association gives money to political candidates. And so I think there's so much politically tied into them. I don't know that they would ever fully go away. I think what's happening more is that consumers are more aware of what they're buying, where they're buying it from. And there's so much more available. It used to be where you couldn't go online and buy everything in the world. I mean, 10 years ago, it wasn't like it is now. Now you can find anything online. And so you don't have to buy from your friend who's selling blush, right? You can go to Sephora. You can talk and something will pop up on Instagram and you can buy it. So I think people are getting more educated and there's just so much more available that you don't have to buy from your neighbor.
The two things I remember that are still going on in England is Avon and Tupperware. Mm-hmm. And I remember my mum was an Avon lady. I remember being a kid, so this would have been the late 70s, I think, going with her when she went door to door to get her order. But it was very like, it wasn't remotely salesy. It was like everyone kind of knew that. And there is still Avon in England because I know my mum I always see her catalogue every so often. Yeah. And then Tupperware parties where you do all of that kind of stuff as well. So yeah, but they never felt really predatory in England
No.
because of all the regulation and stuff.
Right. And back then also, was very local because there wasn't social media. There wasn't the internet. And so you got together with your friends once in a while. And it's like you could only have so many parties and have so much Tupperware that it really just kind of it was more the side hustle, even though the corporate structure still, the people at the top made the most money. I think you didn't have the whole sea of other people you're comparing yourself to, because it was just, you sold in your neighborhood and that's the only place you could go because there wasn't the internet.
I've got written in my notes, dirt list. And I don't know why or what it is. What's the dirt list?
Okay. So when you join, and this is a real thing, this wasn't like a acronym I made up for the book or anything. I was told, to make a dirt list. And I'm like, what's a dirt list? And my upline said, it's the people who would buy dirt from you. So you make a list of the people like, Veronica, like, if you want to start a podcast, who would listen to your podcast? Well, my best friend, my daughter, my mom, whatever. That's your dirt list, people who would buy dirt from you. And those are your first like tester target clients that will buy from you. And so that gives you an instant like gratification boost and like keeps you going. So yeah, that's the dirt list.
Okay. So I had a friend who did Mary Kay a few years ago, and I knew then what it was and everything. And she said, oh, I'm having, and I was like, okay, I'm going to come, I will buy and I'll get, and again, I found an eyeshadow that I liked, that was not a color that I wouldn't have tried normally. And I ordered things from her every month because I just wanted to support her and help her. And the products were fine. It was no, I used them. I wasn't just, so I would have been the dirt list. Like,
you're the dirt list. Yeah.
I'm going to do, okay.
Yeah. And that's why that's so effective, because again, it's like, oh, I'll support her. I'll help her. It's just $20, $30, whatever it is.
Who doesn't need a new lipstick or a candle or whatever. Right. Yeah.
And what I think one thing with MLMs is to just, which I tried to convey in the book, is like to redefine your idea of support, because, for you buying a eyeshadow or blush or whatever, it's no big deal. It's no skin off your back. And for her, the amount of money she's actually getting from that sale is so minuscule. And the amount that her upline is getting. And so it's like, what you're really supporting is the MLM. You're really supporting the structure. Like, she's getting very little from it. So I always say to people who are like, well, how do I support my friend if she really wants me to buy her products? How do I support her? And like, ask, what does she actually need? Like, is she trying to get money to pay a babysitter? Like, get her a babysitter one night, or like buy her a meal, make her a meal, come help clean her house or something. Like, support in ways that they're looking for the MLM to support. You know what I mean? Like, cut out the middleman entirely so they don't get further trapped into that system.
What I really took from your book is that it's a very, very artificial world. It's what you said. What you see on the outside is not what's happening on the inside. So you see the free Mercedes or Lexus or whatever it is, but that's not actually what's happening. And that it takes everything that is good, like female friendship and support and hanging out and having fun and nice products and making money. It takes all of that and sucks everything good and authentic out of it. So there's all that's left is the outside. And you give so many examples in the book of like the way different people sell and like how it's all presented. And it all kind of feels like, really, the conventions, these huge conventions that you can get, like, again, when you're a stay-at-home mom and you've been out of the workforce for years and then you're going to like a big corporate event, and I can totally get why that was attractive. And this feeling of like, we're businesswomen in business, right? I can get why that was so attractive. But it was just a house of mirrors. And everyone really knows that deep down. Did you feel that?
Yeah. I mean, that's the reason. When I first joined, it was like, ooh, you could see how I was like, I don't know how I feel about these things. Like, I didn't know about it, but I knew there was something like cringy about it. And I think everybody has that feeling. It's like, MLMs. They don't necessarily know why, but they know it's like that gut feeling. And so everything in an MLM when you join is taught you're taught to shut down all those thoughts of like, here's a reason to tell people why it's not a pyramid scheme. Here's a reason to tell people why this isn't a scam. When if you have to tell people what you're doing is not a scam, it's probably a scam. That's kind of a red flag. So you're just taught to shut down those thoughts immediately. And yeah, you're right. It just exploits everything that women really are looking for. It exploits the fact
Yes,
that you
that's
want
it.
more money and you want
Yeah.
connection, you want friendship, and it packages it in this very pretty package that's not real.
Sucks the life out of all of the stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me what you've been doing now, because you've got this contrast of being alcohol fueled successful in something that was very artificial and wasn't real, but
Yeah.
you've got the contrast now of creating stuff that's, I know this is your second book.
Yeah.
Tell me about what you do now and all of that.
So I did write the first book and it came out right before the pandemic. And so pandemic happened and, I was going through this recovery coach training and, I was like, well, this would be a good opportunity to like have some meetings for sober moms. Cause of course, what you saw was the same thing that I saw out of the pandemic was all moms were drinking more. Moms were home drinking in front of their kids. They were uncomfortable. And so Sober Mom Squad came out of that, which was just meetings for moms. And then, it turned into its own platform. And anyway, so, daily meetings and just connection and community. And it's been difficult as a person who doesn't want to be salesy, who has been so jaded by an industry that's salesy, to then kind of be in this recovery space. And I know you've seen it and we've talked about this in the past is how do you reach the people you need to reach without being the way you don't want to be, like without making these wild, exaggerated claims and doing these like over the top social media posts and, just how are you authentic on a platform that's not authentic at the end of the day. Right. And how do you reach those people? So it's been interesting. I don't think I would have gone that direction had it not just been the circumstances of the pandemic. And I'm glad that Sober Mom Squad exists now. I love it. It's, it's amazing. But being in the recovery space, as you know, it's hard to have both of those worlds.
Yes. And I mean, you have to promote what you do.
Yeah.
This is what I've seen, because I've been in it for over 20 years before really the internet,
Yeah.
is there's lots of people who get sober and see business opportunities. And this is what I've also seen is authenticity will win out, because people can see when it's just style over substance. So, it's about having some training and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But it's also that this is the big thing, is if your own house is not in order, if you're not working a program and sober, all those people disappear. I've seen it. I've seen former clients, when I ran a rehab, I've seen former clients start Sober Buddy, Sober Taxi, something. And if you don't work on your own sobriety, that's the most important thing. Whatever you've created will just collapse.
Yeah.
And I've seen that in real life, and I've seen it online. So
yeah,
I mean,
it's
I think
been interesting to watch. Like it's been interesting to watch, people who get sober and then I've seen the same thing, try to start their own thing. And then, I think what's been eye-opening for me is I've been in the world where I've been the brand, right? Where I was selling this lifestyle and this life and everything was pretty, but behind the scenes it wasn't. And so I'm very cautious now that it's not about me. Like here's a group. It's not me. It's not, I don't want to be the face of anything, even though it's like, yeah, I'm the founder. Okay. And I'll talk about it and speak for it. But I think the one thing I notice is the, I don't know, it's like the desire for the spotlight that I'm so glad I don't need anymore.
I think I love the idea of Sober Mom Squad, because there is so much shame around drinking, and much more shameful and worse to be a drunk mom than it is a drunk dad. And I think that creating that space is really wonderful, and you've done some training qualifications in it, and I just think it's fantastic. I mean, And this is what is great about the internet and social media, is that people can find this now and get, these peer groups, and it is genuine and authentic and all of that kind of stuff. What are you working on next? Are you going to write another book?
I am. I'm actually working on fiction now. Yeah, because I'm sick of talking about myself. So that's kind of what I'm working on now. And also the Hey Hun is being shopped as a series. So
I can totally see that as a TV show. I can totally see that. That would be awesome. Gosh, really great. And hopefully we'll have you back, because there's lots to talk about, but I really genuinely love your book. Whether you're interested in sobriety or MLMs, it's actually just a really good read. It's just interesting on so many levels. It's really well written. I read it in about 4 or 5 days. Like, I was really and it's like Christie's book. It's like about women in business. That's it. But it was a page turner. It was really kind of, I really enjoyed it. So yeah, well done. And thank you.